Hey, Schmo, it's your pal Mark here. You may notice my body's looking a little leaner, a little meaner. Did I put the burger and fries away? I put some of the fries away, but more importantly, I got Beachbody On Demand. You got to check it out. It's an online fitness streaming service that gives you unlimited access to a wide variety of highly effective, world-class workouts. They're personalized to meet your needs. Beachbody On Demand also includes extensive nutritional content. It's all proven to help people achieve their health and fitness goals. Beachbody On Demand is the total package to help you become the total package this year. I mean, look, here's the keys, okay? You need to work out. You need a good diet. You need your sleep, Schmoville. I'm telling you, I try to get at least 10 hours a day. You don't need that much, but I like my naps. Here's what you do. Beachbody On Demand, you can get it on your computer. You can get it on your web-enabled TV, your tablet, your smartphone, or any other web-enabled device. You don't need to go to a gym or schedule a class, get a personal trainer. If you're traveling, I travel all the time. You can do these workouts in your hotel room. If you don't have time, Beachbody On Demand has workouts that range from 10 minutes to over 1 hour. So there's no more excuses. Beachbody On Demand, you can have a workout that ranges from cardio. You can do yoga, weight training, low impact, and even dance for all you Christian Harloffs out there. There's over 600 different workouts. You can sort by your favorite workout, your favorite trainer, and they help you in the kitchen. They know that working out is just part of the equation. They'll give you comprehensive nutrition plans to help you meet your goals. Information on meal prep, a variety of recipes, and simple but proven eating plans. The best part, it's affordable. You can try this amazing program, all 600 workouts, all the nutritional information for free. Plus, your annual subscription is cheaper than a gym membership. You want to give this a try, and right now, our listeners can get a free trial membership. All you got to do is text SCHMOES, SCHMOES, the plural version, to 303030, 303030. Text SCHMOES to 303030. You can get the entire platform for free, all the workouts and nutritional information for your trial membership. Just text SCHMOES to 303030 for Beachbody On Demand.
Y'all dealing with the kid. If you want to come and get it, let the outlaw get you out your seats. You want sports talk, politics, he don't give a shit. Rocha says speak, follow it. About to issue y'all a masterclass. You want to pass? Gunslinging a new podcast, eat candy ass. Grab a top bench, get information. It's your boy John Rocha. Welcome to the Outlaw Nation.
Of Outlaw Nation. This is John Rocha, a.k.a. The Outlaw. I wasn't originally going to do an episode this week. I just needed a bit of a break with everything that's going on and all the other shows I'm doing and everything that's just happening in my life. And then the school shooting happened in Florida. And I hate to start at this place. It's kind of sad or down, but you know, the Outlaw Nation isn't about holding hands or necessarily in citrus. It's about confronting things and going through them. And just consequently, my friend and co-host on the CineFiles podcast, Steve Morris, reached out to me and he said, "Hey, I think I'm ready to talk about guns." And it's something Steve had brought up a number of times. Now, those of you who are listening who might be gun owners or supporters of the NRA or Second Amendment, this is not going to be about bashing guns. This is a conversation we're going to have about what's happening in our society, about what's happening with the school shootings. You know, we've had, 18 already, or over 20 in 2018, rather. And so there's been a lot that's happened and a lot that's gone on. And this last one, I've never seen such a reaction from the survivors of this kind of attack, where they're going after the people on Twitter, they're going after people on social media. I think it's the first time I've seen an organized social media attack by survivors immediately after a situation like this. And so when Steve texted me and said, "I think I'm ready to talk about guns," I took about a day to kind of figure it out for myself if I was ready to talk about it. And then I decided, okay. So I am at his house now, where we sometimes record the CineFiles. Steve Morris, welcome back to the Outlaw Nation podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Welcome to my house.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome the Outlaw Nation into the Morris home.
Yes. Take a look around. There's so much to see. A lot of great artifacts and pieces of art that are fantastic here.
But yeah, I mean, obviously this is a heavy time, and it's so hard that every few weeks, every few months, suddenly we're back in this place of, you know, mourning the loss of innocent people and going, how do we deal with it? You know? And the thing that tends to happen is right after this moment, we get into the same argument and the same points are made, and you reach the same impasse and the same frustration happens, and then we walk away. Because it seems like there's nothing to be done. And I feel like, just as you say, like, it's not about bashing people that have guns, and it's not about, bashing the people that are screaming on the left or anything like that. But they try to have a conversation about the reality of gun violence in this country, and it's tough to figure out,
Yeah, it really is. And, I grew up in Virginia, in Southern Virginia, Northern Virginia, kind of on that border of Northern to Southern Virginia. So,
that would be the center of Virginia.
Yeah, well, I don't know. There's only Northern and Southern, and then there's like Eastern or something. Like, it's really, Virginia is very strange in that way. Because people in the South of Virginia think you don't really live in the South when you live in Northern Virginia.
That's right.
Never mind that there are plenty of Southern people who have moved up into Northern Virginia and treat their houses and their cars and their lives with a Southern kind of mentality. So I had experience with a number of people growing up in my it was from 9 years old on in a predominantly white Southern city in Dale City in Woodbridge, Virginia. And so for me, I was exposed to a number of people who were into guns and into shooting, going to shooting ranges with their dad, going hunting every summer with or every fall with their dad or their family, go out to West Virginia, numerous places. And so the idea of guns was always kind of prevalent in my mind. But this idea of school shootings was mostly reserved to postal service stuff. We didn't really see school shootings.
The expression going postal.
Right, going postal, exactly. So to see how it's progressed now to this situation, I think it's something we have to explore. I think we'd be remiss to not explore it.
Well, what I would like to do, if it's all right with you, is just kind of take a step away from mass shootings just for a moment.
Of course.
Because like, if you look at the statistics, and that's what I try to do. I've got my phone in front of me to just have some of the numbers so that I know what they all are.
Well, no one's going to know you're cheating, so it's all right.
I don't like to cheat.
I want you to have notes. You're an intelligent guy. It's good to have your notes.
But is that really, although mass shootings are incredibly scary and incredibly upsetting, and they're these, cathartic moments for us as a nation, they actually represent a fairly small number of the number of deaths from shootings each year.
Understood.
It's a few hundred, depends on how you do your math, but definitely under 500 is in mass shootings. It's probably under 3, whereas there are 38,000 people a year killed by guns in the United States. That's a huge number.
Right.
And so what I think would be useful, like partially just to diffuse the conversation, is to maybe back up a little bit and talk about something that maybe we can agree about before we get into the stuff that's going to, where people start to have the argument.
Yeah.
And the first thing to say is that the majority of the people that die from gun violence actually don't die from homicides; they die from suicides. So it's last year there were 14,925 homicides from gun violence, and there were 22,938 suicides.
Right.
And of that,
by guns?
By guns.
Okay.
And of that, the greatest number of suicides is veterans.
Right.
Veterans die. It seems like the statistics say at the rate of 22 veterans a day.
Yeah.
Most of them by gun. Yeah. And I think this is a thing where this is an issue that we should all be able to get behind as being like, this is a terrible tragedy. These are people, you're a veteran, people that have made this tremendous commitment to this country, to defend it, to gone out to fight wars, to do things that are incredibly difficult, and they are dealing with a massive crisis in suicides. And I was thinking about it just in terms, because I like numbers, you know what I mean? Like I want to be able to see like, well, what's the real numbers here? And like one of the numbers I was looking at was how many veterans had died in, Afghanistan's the longest war in American history.
Okay.
And Iraq was also a war that is, lasted about 5 or 6 years. And really there's still people on the ground there.
Yeah.
And in the total of both wars, there were 6,831 Americans killed.
Right.
Which obviously that's a tragedy, and those people are heroes who sacrificed their life to defend our country, whatever you think of those wars. But that number's actually remarkably small compared to, 50,000 Americans killed in Vietnam, for instance.
Right.
This is a much smaller number, and part of why it's such a smaller number is that medical care and transportation and logistics and all this stuff are just off the charts better today, and the incredible training and discipline of the Army has kept that number low.
Right.
There are 8,000 veterans who die every year from suicide. So in the entire time of both the war in Afghanistan and Iraq does not match up to 1 year of suicides by veterans in this country.
Well, because, right? I mean, you know where you belong when you're serving. And we've seen this in movies since black and white movies were done, this idea of trying to acclimate back into society from a war,
Right.
from serving. Like we saw that in Best Years of Our Lives. We see that in Coming Home. We see that in numerous Deer Hunter,
yeah.
numerous movies. Hurt Locker. We see these. We see veterans have a really hard time because this having served. All I can speak about is that they grab you at a young age, and at a young age they like prepare you for battle, for war. They don't actually prepare you for what's going to happen. They prepare you as much as possible to react to what might happen. So once you're there is when you really start to see what this situation is like, what this experience is like, and how it can affect you internally and then outwardly, because you develop a kind of fight or flight response to situations. You develop that there are parameters from which you can live by, and then once you remove those parameters, you come back to the come back home to whatever country you're in or state that you're in. You can't follow those parameters anymore. And sometimes when they're so ingrained in you, you don't know how to function because you don't have that person waking you up. You don't have that camaraderie of your friends doing the stuff that you're doing. You don't have that routine that you had before. And it isn't the same as having some job and then like you can't work with those people anymore. This is like how you live from the inside out. So to remove that, some people have a really hard time transitioning back because they were commanding troops and leading missions, and back home they're a greeter at Walmart or they're working as a cashier or working minimum wage because they don't have the skills to get other kind of jobs that pay them well.
Well, and one of the interesting things, this is a little bit off the topic of guns, but is that a lot of times one of the problems is the skills don't translate. So you might have been a sergeant who was in charge of a huge supply depot.
Yeah.
And you put that on your resume and you should be able to actually run the distribution center at Walmart.
Right.
But they don't accept, this has happened all over the country, is they don't accept military resume and understand what the military experience is and apply it to domestic civilian operations.
Yeah.
So there's people who are highly qualified, but actually aren't getting the highly qualified jobs. But that's off the topic of guns. I mean, in addition, it's like...
Well, I'm cycling back into why these suicides happen.
No question.
Yeah.
Well, and like also you're living in a situation where the stress level is extremely high.
Yes.
And every moment, every person you interact with can be a life or death situation for yourself or the people around you.
Yep.
And, bringing that back into the civilian world... I deal with it in my school. I have a lot of veteran students, a lot of them using the VA to go to film school, which to me seems like a questionable choice. But they're great. They're responsible. They're organized. They just have learned so many great lessons from serving in the military. And I've talked to a lot of them who suffer from or know people who suffer from PTSD.
PTSD is big.
And it is... And most of them I talk to are like, no, the majority of the guys I know came back from Afghanistan are suffering from PTSD.
Yep.
And so like I think... while that number of the casualties of those two wars, 6,000 something, is so low, I don't think it's the correct number.
Right.
Because if you add up the number of veterans who commit suicide, I think that is a result of their service in the war.
Well,
and so that number should be 120,000 veterans.
Wow.
That's how many veterans in the time that we've had the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have committed suicide with guns. That should be a sobering number.
Yeah.
Now, not all of those probably served in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right.
Some of them could be Vietnam veterans. Some of them could be Gulf War veterans. But still, the point remains the same: is that we are not doing enough. We are not doing nearly enough to give back to the people that have made these sacrifices for our country. Right. And I think we all should be able to agree on this. We all should be able to agree that the care, the mental health care, the employment care for our veterans coming back from the war should be a priority of this country.
Well, absolutely. And I don't think you'll find anyone who would say no. But
and yet over and over again, our Congress does say no.
Well, sure. But there are so many things involved with that because those bills are attached to certain things. They try to put like pork legislation on those bills. They try to do all kinds of things that in the end don't really help our veterans because they're all about spending the money on defense because it's big and employs people and it gets them elected because the people they employ will vote for them. But when you
and those defense companies give lots of money to their campaign.
Exactly, that as well. But why aren't we doing enough to take care of our veterans when they come back? Why is that? Do you think we are not, as a people, more motivated to do more for our veterans because they have so much access to the ability to kill themselves? Why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we making it more accessible? I mean, I saw that film with what's his name? Not Shia LaBeouf, the guy that looks like Shia LaBeouf. I can't remember the guy's name, but he played a veteran coming back from It's called Thank You for Your Service was the movie, and he comes back and it lets you into what PTSD is like, what suffering from this is like, because all his buddies who they went off to war with, one by one, come down with a version of this, and he tries to help them and visits them, and then he experiences what it's like going through the VA to try to get help because he starts to slide in to the PTSD, and it's really scary when you read the stories, when you hear the firsthand accounts, and it's no different than what we see in the NFL with the CTE stuff. Is just a version of this because your brain is impacted, does not understand what's happening, reacts in a violent way, a powerful way, a forceful way, and it really unsettles people who are around you, who love you, who don't know what you're doing, who cannot understand why you're having this kind of emotional reaction.
Well, and from what I've read, the number one way that we've made progress with this is with veterans working with other veterans.
Yes, of course.
That it is in support groups, and I hope if there are any veterans out there listening to Outlaw Nation, I wish I should have brought the numbers, but there are VA support groups, there are veteran support groups that you can go and talk and help with these problems. I had a guy, he's a Vietnam veteran who was in my film school class. So he started film school in his 60s, and he's making a documentary about literally guys in their 50s and 60s who are just starting to deal with their PTSD.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
At least they're starting to deal with it. It's fantastic. He's documenting, chronicling it.
Yeah.
Because the stigma of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's the number one I hope we can agree on. And that's,
so you want to pull all the way back to something we can agree on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, this is the problem with this discourse today.
By the way, I'm not saying you should have guns, right? I'm not against you or anything, but but the conversation we want to have is mirroring the conversation people are having not on the Outlaw Nation, out there in the country, out there in the world.
Because people go right to an argument that's going to lead to hate.
Yes.
And we can't, and we're obviously not making any progress.
Right.
So I want to go back to somewhere maybe we can agree a little bit and then work towards where maybe we can make a little progress. So, because the second thing is, if you look at homicides, first of all, one thing that the statistics very, very clearly show is that if you're going to get killed by somebody with a gun, the odds are it's somebody you know. Is that it's not some yes, there are strangers who kill other strangers with guns, but the vast majority is it's a loved one, it's a family member, it's a friend, it's somebody you know.
Yeah.
And so, and the number one place that this happens is with women getting killed by men.
Yeah.
It's, and I'll just look at my numbers here. There's, so 54% of all homicides are committed by people that you know, and half of those are murders committed during arguments.
Yes.
There are 600 women a year killed by their intimate partners, and the vast majority of them is there was already domestic abuse.
Right.
And so, and these statistics are really, really clear.
Now, is that heterosexual partners or
no, both.
Okay.
It's much more likely to happen to women. It does happen to men.
No, but I mean women on women.
I don't have that broken down by that. Certainly, I have it broken down. I think it's 4 times as likely for women to be killed by men and vice versa. But I don't have whether gay partners and stuff like that. Okay. I'm sure the numbers are there, and I'm sure they're smaller.
Well, relationships are relationships, right? It's irrelevant, gay or straight. But yeah, the numbers are there.
And one of the statistics is that if you have a gun in your house, you're 5 times more likely that this is going to happen.
Of course, it's an option.
Yeah, because it's an option. Because when the fight gets out of control, and most relationships at some point has a fight that goes way south.
Yeah.
If there's a gun there, then you just up the odds. Yeah. And the biggest thing is there are laws on the books, both in many states and within the military, that say if you commit domestic abuse, you're going to sacrifice your right to own a gun. Those are not universally enforced. In fact, in Texas, there was the mass shooting a couple of months ago, and that guy, I think it's the Air Force, had not reported that he was a domestic abuser, and had they reported it, he would not have been able to commit that mass shooting.
Yeah.
And in fact, a whole bunch of the mass shootings are committed by people who had been accused or convicted of domestic abuse, including the Pulse nightclub in Orlando.
Yes.
So, this is a real sign. And while I actually... I have feelings about the Second Amendment. I don't have a desire to come after everybody's guns. I know lots of responsible gun owners. My next door neighbor is an LA cop. He's great guy, a very responsible gun owner. Hoover, that I talked about over and over again on the CineFiles, is a hunter. He owns guns. Lots of responsible gun owners. But I have no care about protecting the right of a domestic violence, convicted felon of domestic violence to protect his guns.
Right.
And I don't understand why people would.
Well, no, I don't know if people necessarily do. I think they don't want to break it down on a case-by-case basis. I think they want to have the general belief, some people do, have general belief of either for guns or against guns. Like there's no black and white, there's no gray area. I mean, there's all black and white, no gray area. And that's where we run into trouble when we have this discussion, this idea that I think people... Okay, so this is my show. This is going to be my opinion, right? I think people, for the most part, that have guns, have multiple guns. Not a gun. A gun, some people just have for protection. But multiple guns, they have this inherent fear that they will somehow be found out in a situation or caught out in a situation where they're not able to respond. They need that gun. They need those guns. Or they believe the government's going to really come after them. They really do believe the government could come after them and try to put them, they want to overthrow the government or whatever for some reason. There's this thing that's inherent in the need of guns. But the truth is, Hoover, your friend LAPD, if we removed all guns, just all guns, eventually the responsible gun owners would relax and be fine about it. It's the people who want to own 20, 40, 50, 60, 80 guns, like they have to get the rocks off by shooting these guns, are the ones that we start to have these issues, because they want to make everything accessible to them just in case they want to have as many guns as possible. And every time like Obama has passed anything or talked about anything, the sales of guns have risen every year that he talked. Every year he was in office, the sales of guns rose. Why? Because people fomented on TV this idea that he was going to come for your guns. And why is that? Because they're bought and paid for by the NRA, and the people who do this then funnel that money into the NRA because they increase the sales of guns and bullets and what have you. And the thing is, at some point, either we stop talking about this needs to happen and just accept the fact that people are going to get shot any moment, wherever they go, school, anywhere, or we deal with it. And I don't see us dealing with it, and I see us backing down too much to the people who are part of the gun lobby. And maybe that's a fear that those people are going to shoot us. So this is all this. There's so much involved here, and there's so many tentacles involved here as well, because you're right, because the stigma of domestic violence. Why aren't people reporting it? Why are people covering it up? Why aren't people talking about it more? Because some people don't report it from the people who are doing it because they might have done it themselves. Or they might have thought about doing it. So they're like, okay, I get it, why he did that. I'm not going to report it. And the stigma of it, that's the thing as well. People, like, we see this now changing with the Me Too movement, with the Time's Up movement, this idea of abuse towards women, violence towards women. This is changing. Finally, once and for all, this is changing. It's moving away. And I think eventually this idea of not reporting domestic violence, like you will go to jail or you will have punishment for not reporting domestic violence. And that may be the turn that needs to happen here.
It's so hard. There's a thing I think about quite a bit, which is one of the things that always bothers me is binary thinking, which means binary thinking. By that, I mean it's either this or it's this.
Right.
You're either pro guns or you hate guns.
Yes.
And the problem with it is things are rarely this or that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that happens, there's the idea that part of the reason that people even who don't have a lot of money are okay with real big tax cuts for the rich is that everybody in America has the American dream, and they all believe maybe someday I'm going to be rich.
Yeah.
And so when I get to be rich, I want those, I want those protections.
I want as much money as possible.
I want as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing kind of happens with guns, which is that there are a lot of responsible gun owners who maybe they're hunters or they're collectors or they, believe in self-defense in all these ways, and they train and they know what they're doing. Yeah. And then they hear someone passing a gun law, and even though that law has nothing to do with them, they could be coming after my gun.
Right.
And so the first reaction is to go, wait. And what's interesting about this, I just heard there's a great podcast called More Perfect, which is from the people who make Radiolab.
You're going to promote another podcast on my show, you son of a bitch. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
And what it's about the Supreme Court. It's all about Supreme Court decisions.
Yeah. Oh, great.
And one of them is about the NRA. And one of the things they talk about is, which I didn't know, is that when the NRA was founded, it was really non-political.
Yes.
It was really about, we want people to have better gun safety and to understand how to use a rifle because they're eventually going to be soldiers and we want them to be good shots.
It's responsible.
And it was a very responsible kind of grassroots educational organization that took kids out and taught them how to shoot a .22. and taught them gun safety. And the basic rule was we want to stay out of politics. And then in the 70s, there was kind of a rogue group within the NRA that started to be this, really absolute. And the NRA, by the way, was for gun regulations.
Yeah.
In the 1920s, 1930s, they were like, yeah, of course we have to regulate these. Guns are serious business.
We were kind of civil once upon a time.
And then in the 70s, there's this schism within the NRA, and essentially there was a coup. They had a big vote, and all of the established people got voted out, and these new people got voted in. And ever since then, there has been the basically, out of my cold dead hands, a la Chuck Heston, that any regulations on guns of any kind is an imposition on their rights. And that's been the argument we've been having for quite a long time. And I don't understand this argument. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand why, what we would call some reasonable things, like not letting people that beat up on their wives buy a bunch of guns.
Yes.
That seems like a fairly reasonable thing.
Mm-hmm. Or criminals.
Yeah. I mean, it's like that it's been well established within the American culture that this right to own guns, and while it's not my favorite thing, I can't defeat that.
Yeah.
But I think I wish that we could be more reasonable about how we do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think most of us who are on a certain side of the feeling about guns, like I would love for all the guns to go away, but I'm also okay with the Second Amendment if you want to own a gun for protection or what have you. That's not my issue. I don't mind you having a gun in your house. Now, Steve recited some interesting statistics, because having a gun in your house can lead that argument to be deadly. And that's unfortunate, right? And so certainly possible. So these are weapons that kill. And people are like, well, guns don't shoot themselves. Yes, I know they don't shoot themselves. That's the problem. Like, it's the problem that people have too easy access to them, too easy access to use them. And this is the issue that we come back to. And you're like, oh, well, what's going to stop a person with a gun, a good person, or a bad person with a gun, a good person with a gun? These are all clever quips. And they're fantastic, very inventive, and you've lived off them for years. But at some point, we have to stop being clever and actually have to deal with this. And dealing with this is not going, oh, mental health, mental health, mental health. Yes, true. Mental health does factor into this. But what has your congressman or congressperson done to make mental health easily available, affordable, and accessible to people who are going to use it? And if people are showing mental health issues, then what is your community doing to make sure that person gets the treatment they need, and they deserve? What are you doing to make that happen? And so these are things that come back to, like, people, they want to recite this stuff. We see it from our congressional leaders all the time. Well, it's a mental health issue. Great. Show me your voting record on mental health bills. Show me what you're proposing. Show me what you're doing to stop this other than playing to your base.
Well, okay. A couple of things I want to pull apart out of that.
I got a lot to say, man.
I know you
I'm
do.
sorry. All right, yeah.
The first one is one thing I should have mentioned when we talked about guns in the home is, in addition to being 5 times more likely that a gun will be used against someone in that home, is that we haven't talked about accidents. That's another big slice of, and in particular, a lot of them are little kids. Little kids find a loaded gun, and suddenly there's a dead little kid. And it's about 500 to 600 people die a year from gun accidents. A huge percentage of them are little kids. And this is one where you want to be a gun owner, you got to be a responsible gun owner.
Yes.
You got to store it properly. You got to keep it, you keep the ammo separate. There is very clear, responsible guidelines about how to take care of guns. And in particular, you got a kid in the house, or kids are coming over to play. They shouldn't find daddy's 9mm hidden under the pillow.
Right.
It's just too damn dangerous. Now, as far as what you said about mental health, I couldn't agree more, because that what tends to happen is that we have a mass shooting, and then the left says gun control, gun control, gun control,
right,
and the right, or the gun lobby says that's not going to solve the problem. This is about mental health, and then we reach an impasse, and
that's only recently been happening.
Yeah,
before it was don't take away my guns, so cold dead hands, like you said about Chuck Heston. Only recently have they tried to use the mental health defense as a shield.
Well, and where I will agree with the pro-gun lobby is that if we had all the gun control that you and I would probably like, we have background checks, rules about mental health, we had banned bump stocks and AR-15s and all these other things.
Yeah.
that would not in any way guarantee that there wouldn't be a mass shooting the next week.
Absolutely.
There's going to be. There is no law that we can write today that is going to eliminate this problem. It cannot be eliminated completely.
Right.
But this, to me, is not the point. It's like the analogy I came up with is the biggest thing that's going to kill you in the United States is heart disease. Okay. So let's say you have a bunch of doctors and say, listen, we have an epidemic of heart disease. So we need to push exercise and nutrition. And another group of doctors goes, wait. There are a bunch of people that have genetic predispositions towards high cholesterol or high blood pressure. So what we really need to do is get good drugs, and we need to get those people on the right prescription meds. And then another group of doctors goes, whoa. There are a bunch of people that have been dealing with these problems for years, and they have buildup in their arteries. So what we really need to do is surgery. We need to cut these people open. We need to roto-rooter their veins. We need to put stents in. And then they argue, and at the end of this argument, they can't agree on which one's going to solve the problem, and so they do nothing.
Exactly.
That's what's happening with guns.
Yes.
Is there a mental health issue? Yes, there is a mental health issue.
Right.
And President Trump rescinded the ban. Obama had put big restrictions on people with mental health problems getting gun. President Trump got rid of that. President Trump also has just proposed a budget which would cut huge amounts out of Medicaid, out of all these health services. 25% of the people dealing with mental health issues get their money from Medicaid.
Right.
So like if you believe that mental health is a problem, you know what? So do I. Yeah. Let's solve that problem. If you believe that bump stocks, and let's do that too. And you know what? Neither of those things are going to stop every mass shooting. And you know what else? There are people who say, you know what? The real problem is fundamentalists, whether it's Islamic fundamentalists or members of the KKK or the neo-Nazis, and that's a real problem, and we need to go after those people. And you know what? I totally agree. Yeah. We do have to go after those people. We need the FBI to look at who is associating within these groups, who's posting online. If you're posting online like this kid did in the Florida shooting and saying, I want to do this, and by the way, there's a white supremacist group that's claimed him as a member.
Of course.
If someone's doing that, you know what? You don't get to have guns. Yeah. I'm really sorry about that. And maybe that's, a mistaken thing, and you just kind of went online as a joke, and well, guess what? Sorry, no guns for you. Right. And we need to do all those things, and doing all those things, that still isn't going to make this problem go away, but it's going to take a chunk out of it. And then we learn some lessons. And with every loophole that someone gets through to get some guns to kill a lot of people, let's figure out how to solve that problem and close that loophole.
Well, that's what I think is missing, is this idea of like, well, it's not going to stop it, so we shouldn't do anything.
I hate that.
That is not an American thing. Yeah. That's not an American way to approach any problem. We have never approached any problem with, well, no matter what we do, we're not going to stop it. We might as well not even try. We have you know what? Anything you do about cancer doesn't seem like it's really helping. So but you don't go. Okay, exactly. You don't just screw it. Yeah, exactly. You don't go screw it. We're not just gonna. We're just not gonna stop.
Here's another pack of cigarettes.
Yeah,
I can't solve your cancer.
Or we're not gonna. You know what? Take all the funding back. We're not gonna work on it anymore. Like, these are the things. We are a country of achievers and doers, and we change things. We come up with new technology. We come up with new medicines. We come up with all these kinds of things to combat. And if you got restless leg syndrome, I got something for you. Right. You got any little small malady that you're coming up with, I got stuff. Gastrointestinal, I told you, I've got gluten-free shit you can eat. Like, there's all kinds of stuff we do to combat issues that come up in people's lives. But guns, for many reasons,
we don't want to touch.
We don't want to touch. And I think it's going to lead to a battle, and which may be what these people want, which scares me, because eventually, what does that mean? And how powerful are these gun manufacturers? How really powerful have they become when you're arming the populace to kill American citizens? And when you're arming American citizens to kill other American citizens. And I don't mean they do it purposefully, but they certainly don't care if you do or don't, because they don't support any regulations that will restrict them selling as many guns as possible and as much weapon or as much ammo as possible so they can line their pockets.
Well, to me, I look at the car industry. The car industry has gone. Right. Car industry resisted safety features for a long time. We don't want to put seatbelts on. We don't want to put crumple zones. And then there was a certain point that they realized that their cars that were really safe were selling better.
Right.
And so they said, oh, this is actually in our best interest to do this correctly. One thing I wanted to say is that there are basically like restless leg syndrome that you brought up. Yeah. There is, I am sure, 12 studies funded by the federal government at the CDC right now looking into that, as well as looking into things about banana slugs and hair removal and all sorts of other things. The two things that's almost impossible to raise federal funding for is research into medical marijuana in guns.
Wow.
There's almost no research on guns, which is why when I go to try to find statistics, it's actually really hard. We don't have good statistics on a lot of this.
That's on purpose.
It is definitely on purpose. And the big one that you brought up is this idea of the good guy with the gun.
Yeah.
Now, there's no question that there are times where good people with a weapon manage to defend their house, defend their family, defend themselves. And we can point to some that happened at mass shootings.
Yes.
There are definitely times when it's happened. But what we don't know is how often it happens, because there are essentially no statistics on this. And some of them, they're hard to get. Like, let's say I'm walking down the street as I normally do, and I feel like, oh, there's some guy, he's coming up behind me. He feels, iffy. I don't really like the situation. So I reach over and I flash the concealed weapon that I'm always carrying with me, which I actually never am. But I flash it for him. The guy's eyes go wide, crosses the other side of the street. He turns down the street and he disappears. Now, what just happened? Did I, A, protect myself from a potential murderer who's going to mug me and kill me?
Possibly.
Or did I, B, scare the crap out of some innocent guy who was just walking on the same street with me?
That's true.
And the answer is, when I tell the story, I say, hey, I'm a hero. I'm a good guy with a gun.
Right.
But maybe I'm not. And it's hard to gather these statistics. But there are some that we can be pretty clear about. And one of the things I really want to know is, how often does this happen?
Yeah.
How often does someone get to that gun that they have locked up and defend their family? My guess is not that often.
Yes. That's my guess too.
But I don't know the statistics because they are not available, because we don't do research.
And that's the other side of it. If you want to support this idea of not having this research to explore gun violence, then you don't get to have credit by saying, well, a good man with a gun or a good person with a gun can stop it, because you don't have any evidence to back you up. You have zero. You have nothing to back you up in that argument. And that's what I mean, Steve, when I said earlier, at some point, we have to stop being clever and deal with this. And, finding these shields that they're using now, mental health, finding these other shields of like, well, this is a country founded on guns and founded on the militia and all this kind of stuff. It's great. We don't live in that time, and we're not going back to that time anytime soon.
Well, some people think we are.
Well,
that's
right,
one of
and
the,
that's the problem.
This is the, particularly during the Obama presidency,
Yeah.
there was a large group of people who felt like, hey, I'm going to have to defend myself from the government.
Right.
And frankly, today, under the Trump administration, there are a fair number of people on the left who are suddenly feeling the same way.
But that seems way more believable.
Well, I mean, you and I both exist on the left, and we both liked Obama a lot better than we liked Trump.
True.
So yes, I do think that seems more believable. I don't think Obama had any intention of taking away people's guns, but like the and this is one of the things that's really, really hard, is that for democracy to survive, we must be civil.
Yes.
We must put our faith that this system can actually work. And when we lose faith in it, that's when people start grabbing their guns.
Right. Right. But both sides have to be involved in a civil conversation.
No question about it.
And that's what concerns me is I see, and people from the right feel this way, that the left people don't want to have these conversations because they get emotional, they yell, or whatever. And people from the right, people from the left don't want to have these conversations with people from the right because the right just shut down, or they say abusive things in verbal confrontation and whatever. And so there's all these stigmas.
Really, both sides say abusive things.
Sure. But Steve, what's the end game? That's the thing. Where does this stop? Because in essence, and I've said this a number of times, I don't know where the end point is that we turn around. It feels like we are in this car and we have crashed through the don't trespass road out ahead, and our brakes aren't working, and we're just barreling down this road. And because we're battling this way and there's no resolution, no real reaching across the aisle, we're all going to go over the side of the cliff or the end of the roads in the same car. And eventually our country will be destroyed. And that scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, me too. No, I feel the same way. And I keep waiting for some reasonable person to be able to step out from both sides. Like, for instance, I don't agree with everything John McCain says.
Right.
I don't agree with everything Joe Biden says. But they're buddies.
Yeah. And
they both really like each other, and they both really believe in a lot of the things we're talking about. While I might disagree politically with various stances. And that kind of a relationship has to come to the foreground and eclipse the other stuff. But the noise and the sound and fury of the Trump administration and the social media reaction to every single thing that's happening every day is drowning all of that any possibility of civil discourse out. So I don't know. I wish I knew.
Well, that's the thing. And I, you know, when you talk about guns, especially because these hot button issues are the things that we as Americans used to be able to put our nose to the grindstone and figure out and compromise on. We are the country that built civil rights. We are the country for the people in this country. We are the country that did Medicaid. We're the country that whatever group has been rejected or denigrated or subjected to, having their needs not met throughout the history, there has been a stronger impulse to help, to aid, to put them in affirmative action. All that was born from racism that was occurring in hiring, and yes, that was occurring. The same thing with gender stuff. All that was the push to have equal pay was because we were seeing, and we still see it now. We see it now happening in Hollywood. How male actors were getting paid more than female actors. This whole idea of pay disparity is all there. But we used to be able to solve these issues, put our nose to the grindstone. You have to give in a little bit, compromise on certain things, and then we'd solve it. But I don't know what the trigger was or what happened or what the change was where all of a sudden it became, no, we don't do that anymore. And I think it occurred during the Obama administration, and people want to blame Obama for this, but it's not that. It's people saw a black president wanting to change things, wanting to do these kinds of things, and it scared the shit out of them. And I think a lot of people don't want to admit that. And they're on their side, holding onto their guns, thinking the government's going to come in any moment to take them, which is why they support Trump doing the things that he's doing, because he is pushing back in his way just as extremely as they accused Obama of doing.
I think it's built really slowly over a long period of time.
Yeah.
I think, if you go back to the Dixiecrats and the split over civil rights,
sure,
and you go to the moral majority under Richard Nixon, and you go to the reaction against Ronald Reagan in the 80s, and the use of polarized media and the 24-hour news cycle, all of these things have slowly pushed this snowball down the hill, and it's built. And under Obama and with the rise of Facebook and Twitter, and then particularly with Trump, it has accelerated and grown until I don't know how we stop it.
Yeah.
And I wish I did.
Well, we have these sound bites on Twitter. They're essential sound bites. And Twitter was like, well, we'll give you 440 more characters to foment what you want to say about this issue and cause more debate and division. And that's the thing. There's not enough debate about understanding. There's more debate about being entrenched in your points of views about things.
Agreed.
And trying to force people to feel the way you feel about it, or to see your logic and change their lives and be like, oh, no, what? You're right. I hadn't thought about that before. And that's what concerns, and that's what I think is actually doesn't concern me, actually excites me about the reaction of these kids to this shooting, because they're using social media for good. Like, they're using social media to push back at these narratives that come from the other side that are convenient for their points of views, for their money. Because people like Tommy Lauren, like, she released that statement, oh, why does it let always politicize? She's saying all that to appeal to her base because she wants to make her money and live in her nice house and have her nice cars and do whatever. She doesn't believe anything that she is saying. Or if she does, it only coincides with the fact that she can make money off of it. And that's the thing. These are plastic demagogues on the other side that are saying these. Hannity's another one. They just say this stuff because they don't see the actual consequences of their words happening in their lives, right? If Tommy was saying these kinds of things and then a gun owner shot her parents, she might have a different point of view. Hannity, if these things happen and Hannity lost his house or whatever, or so he might have a different point of view. If he had a gay brother and his gay brother was gay bashed to death by someone who watched his show and heard the things he had to say, or his brother was an Obama supporter and was beat to death because some people who watched Hannity's shows were so hyped up they went and beat him up. Like, those are those things that they don't see every day, so they get to just say whatever because they count their cash, go home, and wake up the next day and keep spewing that stuff that they spew.
Well, first of all, I hope none of those things happen.
Well, sure.
But second of all, I think what's happened is that the ability to get someone to tune into you has become a currency that is more valuable than anything else.
Absolutely.
Rather than the quality of what they are tuning in for.
Yeah.
And the great genius of this, the master of masters of this, is our president.
Yeah.
Is that there was something I saw which was that, companies figure out how much your name is worth. How much time is the world spending talking about you? And the last time, I saw this 6 months ago or something, but that people are talking about President Trump more than every single other person in the world combined.
Yeah.
That is how often people are discussing him, and that is valuable brand currency, and that is what he cares about. And all of these other people that you mentioned, and including a lot of people on the left, it's like, I can write the most beautiful 10,000-word essay explaining in detail my feelings about guns and gun violence, but no one's going to pay attention to that compared to that tweet.
Yeah.
You hit that right tweet, and it's going to go around the world a million times, and yet that beautiful tweet is killing us.
Yeah. Well, one of the resolutions I made myself when I started 2018 was that I would try to tweet about Trump less. And I'm not always.
Actually, you have. I noticed.
Yeah. I've stopped doing it overtly, and occasionally I'll have episodes like this on Outlaw Nation where we just have to talk about things and figure it out. But because I feel like by spewing that kind of hate, I'm contributing to the destruction of discourse, and I realize that. Well, because what I have to say isn't. What I say? How can I say this? What I have to say isn't appealing to anyone else but the people who believe the way I believe.
Right.
It's not open.
You're preaching to the choir.
Exactly. And it's not open to conversation. It's not open to understanding, right? My friend Joey over at Collider, Joey Russell, he on his Facebook posted a question and said, I want to hear from the people who own guns who are my friends. I want to have this conversation. And Facebook's not the most logical place to have these kinds of back and forth, even though you have incredible amount of real estate to write paragraphs upon paragraphs in responses to people's things. It still isn't the right, because people's anger gets involved. People make these little snide comments which set other people off because they enjoy setting other people off. And so it doesn't lead to actual understanding and agreement and discourse. But that bleeds from the top down. Like you said, it's Trump, it's like our congressional leaders. There is no kind of compromise happening like we used to compromise. We used to understand. Like Tip O'Neill and Reagan would find these things to compromise on because they understood that's the currency of getting things done in this country.
Their job is to run the government.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We see more. It's more totalitarian now, which is really scary. And Obama wasn't totalitarian in this way. He was saying, I don't think accepting everybody and creating space for everybody to exist and have a happy life, which is in the credo of the American Constitution, right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This idea of that they are allowed to do this, no matter what their sexual orientation is, no matter what their color of skin is, no matter what their gender is. That's not totalitarianism. This the actual anti-definition of totalitarianism is to allow everyone to have access to everything if they work hard and have the opportunity to do so.
Sure.
Yeah. So this idea of guns with the school, Steve, what was your reaction when you were seeing these kids tweeting out to these people, like fighting back in such strong terms?
It's amazing. And to see them so brave and clear and making the simple statement of fix it.
Right.
I mean, there was the one guy who said, we're kids, you're the adults.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Right. But of course, certain people who have to protect their base and protect their money will say, oh, they're kids. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what it's like in the real world. They're pampered. They're sitting around, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Those millennials or whatever they want to say. And that's the thing. And so there's no one wants to admit that they're wrong. No one wants to say, you know what, we should take a look at this. Like I was really surprised when I read today about Kirk Gowdy wanting to open a probe into what happened with this Porter guy between what the White House said and what the FBI said. I was shocked. This is a Republican person who actually legitimately wants to explore something that happened between the FBI and the president and the White House about a guy who had physically abused his two previous wives. Yeah. And so this was, and it shouldn't be a surprise. It should not be a surprise. Yeah. This should be logical, but it was a surprise to me. Anyway, what were we getting at?
Well, I think I've said sort of the piece. The thing that I would say is let's try to agree on something small. Let's just try to make one step.
Yeah.
Like let's start to take the guns out of domestic abusers' hands.
Right.
Let's say if you're on the no-fly list, you don't get a gun.
Right.
And at the same time, let's work on mental health. Let's do it. And
I agree.
And if there are other people that have other solutions to try to work on this problem, let's do some research on it.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Well, and I think you're making great points because the mental health thing, we see this because it's very expensive to get mental health. And you see it, a lot of insurance plans don't cover mental health. And that's dangerous as well, or they make it expensive to cover mental health. I was on an insurance plan when I went through what I went through a couple of years ago. I did not have access to mental health facilities because it wasn't covered by my insurance. It was like $150, $200 a session.
Right.
And so if I didn't have a friend who ran a mental health facility to step in and help me offset the costs, I don't know if I'd be here today. And that's really important. That tells you. And I'm a veteran. I would have absolutely used a gun. There was legitimately weeks where I had planned the whole thing out, had the weapon, knew where to go get the gun, knew where to go get the ammo, knew I could get it easily because I have no criminal record and I have a clean record, and it wouldn't be an issue for me to buy a gun and buy 6 bullets and
if you had had that gun in your house,
the morning that I woke up wanting to kill myself, if I had a gun in my house, I would have done it.
Wow,
honest truth, I would have done
terrifying.
it. I was so at my end of everything. I was so like, there is no value to me as a human being. None. Zero. I had blown my chance to create something special in my mind with someone, and I had done that so many times in my life that I'd hit that point that there's no point to keep going. There's no point. I'm clearly not fit to be someone's romantic partner because I just can't handle the situation, or I can't confront the things I need to confront. I'd had 3 terrible relationships before then. And so it was all just kind of led to this moment where years of all this came over me, and I could not handle the weight of it anymore. And I broke. I had a psychological break where I only had knives in the house. And if I don't call the suicide prevention hotline, that was the next step, running the water, putting my arms in the water, cutting myself, and just lying in the bath and dying that way. If I had a gun in my house, which I had considered that morning, there is a very good chance that through my tears and my sadness and my complete and utter despondency, I would have put the gun to my head and just finished it. Because also the loss of my father came back really powerfully as well. Like missing him, which I still do every day. And it's not overpowering, but it's always there. The chance to see him again. Because I'm not one of these people that believes if you kill yourself, you don't go to heaven. You know, I was just like, we'll see what happens. And I was ready to do it.
Well, and this is the thing, like, you know, and maybe this is, you know, we started talking about veterans and suicide, and that we talk about the value of having a gun in the house for home defense and all these things. The fact that you did not have a gun in the house at that time might have saved your life.
It absolutely saved my life. I don't even think may is a possibility. It's absolutely saved my life.
To go back that number, 23,000 people a year kill themselves with guns.
Yeah. And it's because we don't do enough to help them transition. We don't do enough to help them talk about it. Yeah. And that's the stigma that has to be broken, this idea of wanting to talk about mental health issues. Until we break that stigma, more of these deaths are going to occur until it becomes regular that we can have this conversation. It's not a negative. You know, people go to colonoscopies, you know, that I can understand why you're afraid of. You're going to get a tube up your ass. But mental health is something else. Mental health is something else. It's more powerful. It can lead to more destruction, not just to you, but to the people around you. So, you know, if you're listening to us on Outlaw Nation right now, and you've got, you know, you're going through some tough times, going through those periods, maybe you do have a gun in your house. I encourage you to get rid of it. I encourage you to sell it, throw it in the ocean, or throw it in the river, whatever you need to do, get rid of it, or destroy it if you can destroy it somehow. I'm sure there are ways to destroy guns. I would encourage you to do that because it's no different than having a bag of cocaine if you're a drug addict just sitting in your kitchen. Even though you've been sober, it's there waiting for you to use it.
I don't keep my cocaine in the kitchen.
That's good. That's good. It's too easy.
Not the appropriate
Could be
place
flour, and next thing you know, what you've made. But no, I mean, I just really want, if you're listening, if you're a veteran yourself, there are numerous services. If you're suffering yourself mental health, there are numerous places that you can go, give call, and find out if they can work with your economic situation to help you. Because people who do psychology, people who do psychiatry, it comes from a place of wanting to help other people. And so there are options for you. Now, if you're a veteran, you go to the VA, it probably is very difficult to get that kind of help. So there must be other programs. So, if you were listening and you're not a person who suffers with this, but you're involved in your local government, propose bills, push these kinds of things to happen, to be talked about. It's really important in these council sessions. Go be active, because you help one person, you could be saving someone's life, not just the person in front of you, but the person who might flip out and kill other people. You may have saved that person by helping them get some mental health
That's a great
relief.
Point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And I would say too, if you're working at a school, if you're working in an environment where this is happening, pay attention to your students, pay attention to people around. There's a lot of responsibility.
Have conversations with them. Make them feel heard, listened to.
Yeah.
Most of the times this violence comes from people who don't feel paid attention to or respected or cared about or heard or seen.
Yep.
And they just want to leave a statement. They want to fight back in the most desperate way they can.
And if you're worried, then you got to tell someone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Start the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, I think that's a good episode of the Outlaw Nation. Thanks so much for taking the time to stop by. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, thank you for having me. And of course, as always, you want to visit the CineFiles, which is not as heavy as this. We talk about a new film every week.
We do.
Have great guests. I'm not sure what movie we have next week.
I don't know either. We always figure this out on the fly because we record episodes ahead of time, and then you go, "What do you feel like this week?" And I go, "I don't know. What do you think?"
Yeah.
Bliss. Oh yeah, that sounds good. Let's start with that one.
Yeah.
So,
There'll be a good one, though. We got a bunch of good ones in the can.
we really have recorded some really good ones, and we're recording another one tomorrow. I think it's going to be a blast. So we don't want to give it away just yet. Yeah. Steve, where can people find you if they want to talk to you more about this? Maybe
On Twitter at SR Morris.
Yeah, you find him there. You can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Outlaw Nation this week. And, hey, keep the suggestions coming. Keep the messages coming. Keep the DMs coming about. You guys have been incredible sending me DMs about the stuff you're going through, your mental health stuff. And a lot of you have started sending me positive ones who sent me sad ones a year ago. It's amazing to hear how you guys have listened to my words and other words and found ways out of your sadness and your depression, and you're making positive impact and positive changes in your life. And going back and listening to my episodes motivates you to kind of keep it together, to keep going, and to do other things and to make the changes that you want to make in your life because you see me as an example. Let me tell you something. There's nothing that moves me more than that and humbles me to the floor. On my knees to hear things like that or read things like that from you guys. So I really appreciate the words. And most of all, I appreciate that you have taken the steps courageously and bravely to change your life and do better, because your life is worth it. You have value. You can do incredible things in this world and change people's lives. And if I had killed myself that day, who knows how many people I wouldn't have been able to help. And to know that I can use my experience to help other people and destroy the stigma piece by piece, person by person, it means a lot. So thanks, everyone, for listening this week. And, of course, if you want to explore more about guns, go out and go and read the articles, go Google stuff, go find the statistics for yourself and make up your own mind. Don't just listen to Steve and I. Make up your own mind about these situations and what your feelings are, and let me know about it. Why not? It's the Outlaw Nation. We don't do things like everyone else. We're outlaws, damn it. All right. I love you all. Thanks so much for listening this week. Thanks again to Steve Morris for stopping by. And, yes, the CineFiles and the Top 10 show, find those things on iTunes. Listen to us, download them. You have a good time. They'll put a smile on your face. All right, we'll talk to you next week on Outlaw Nation.